Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Homer and the Hater Show. I am Jeff, the Homer, and this guy to my side, if you're watching live on YouTube, is Lance. He's the hater. What's up, Lance? How you doing?
Doing excellent. I'm doing excellent.
Wow, short and sweet. There you go.
I mean,
no hat today for Lance. I'm wearing a hat. What the heck's going on? We're all sorts of all over the place.
I have to be proud of what my hair looks like currently. And I'm just gonna embrace it.
Oh, as a guy that cuts his own hair, like I'm fortunate in that regard during this global situation that we find ourselves in. No, well, that's why I cut it so short.
You have wings, my friend. You have taken flight.
Exactly. So I want to give a big shout out real quick before we get started to Tony Defio. Tony had his first solo show yesterday, Saturday. Steelers Brunch with Tony. That was what he wanted to call his show. He was going to think of some topics, maybe some articles that he was planning on for the upcoming week as talking points. And I thought he did a really good job with his first show. Look, getting on the air live, getting on the air by yourself is not easy. And I thought he did a really good job. You could definitely tell he settled in the second half of the show. And being a part of this YouTube channel helps tremendously. You can use the live chat to bounce ideas off of people. You can get responses and things like that. And Lance, you do a weekly solo show. You can speak to that as well. I mean, I thought he did a good job. I just want to give a shout out to him.
Yeah, it does take some time speaking into an empty room by yourself. Like, it's just kind of weird. But I think, after some time, you get used to it. Also, it takes a bit of like hubris. It takes a little bit of ego too. I mean, because you're just like, look, people want to hear what I want to say, and it just takes a little. You got to kind of stick your chest out with it too. I mean, so it takes a little bit of time. It's just kind of, but it is kind of weird. It's like I'm just talking in this room, and nobody is really listening, but everybody is really listening. So it takes some time. I thought he did a fantastic job. And he will develop more of a rhythm as he does it.
And a shout out to all of our podcasters, not just Tony, but the Lance, who does work on Fridays by himself. We'll talk about that show next. But also to Brian Anthony Davis, Dave Schofield, Big Bro Rich, all the people that are on our platform. Big shout out to them. They do a lot of hard work behind the scenes that really goes unnoticed. So I just want to give a shout out to them. But Lance, on Friday, you did your I Said It, and it was all about one Andy Dalton. Now, we got to talk about this on Thursday in the Steelers preview. You were in the live chat stirring it up like you do, as better than maybe anyone. And so it's one of those situations where Andy Dalton is no longer on the market. He signed with the Dallas Cowboys for what, $7 million, $3 million guaranteed. That's a hefty price tag for a backup. Yeah. What were your thoughts when you heard that? I know you sent a text saying good deal. I was like,
I think it's a good move. I mean, given the fact that the quarterback position is the most important position in a football team, if you can solidify that room and minimize the drop off between your starter and your backup to essentially keep your season afloat, I mean, I think it's a really good move. I mean, their quarterback room is really good now. And I think even just from a coaching standpoint, from a practice situation, I mean, Andy Dalton is going to push Dak Prescott to be better. And because, Andy Dalton has been a starter, whether you think about it, whatever you think about him, Andy Dalton has been a starter for a while. He's played a lot of football games. And also from a cerebral standpoint, he brings certain ideas, how he sees coverages, how he would attack a coverage, and he brings that level of respect to the room because he's been in the fight. He's been around with the bullets flying, and although they haven't been highly successful, the Bungles haven't been with Dalton. I think they went to a playoff game or two, but never won a playoff game. Correct? With Dalton,
they haven't won a playoff game since like 1990.
Yeah. So, I mean, but he does bring some respect of that. He makes their quarterback room better. I mean, if Dak Prescott sustains like an 8-game injury, I mean, they can float. And that's what it's all about. You have to preserve these seasons and these opportunities to try to win championships because they don't come often. So I thought it was a solid move for them.
I think that there's a lot of people that are saying that what are the Cowboys going to rescind Dak Prescott's franchise tag, and that would be a big risk. The premise behind that is they rescind it, they're off of that $31 million hook, and they might be able to try to negotiate a contract that would be lesser because right now there's not so much a demand for quarterbacks because the market's pretty much set. Most anyone that's still in the market isn't going to be viewed as a starter, most likely, and that includes Cam Newton because of his health. We just don't know what his health is, but that would be a gamble if the Cowboys did that, and that's neither here nor there. But you know who I think Andy Dalton reminds me of the most, and it just happens to be that they're going from one place to the other, and it's exactly mirrored. He reminds me of a glorified John Kitna. That's exactly who he reminds me of. He does not do, in my opinion, anything superb. There is nothing about him that is even close to elite. And so it just so happens that Kitna was with the Bengals and then Kitna went to Dallas, and it seems like that's the same. I don't see Andy Dalton as being anything special. Jameis Winston was different. Jameis Winston has, in my opinion, he has the moxie that you want in a quarterback. He's got the confidence. Andy Dalton even doesn't even have that, in my opinion. I don't know. He's been banged up the last few years. I think that if anything, that the Saints are probably sitting there thinking, man, we got a heck of a deal for Jameis Winston. And the Cowboys giving him $3 million guaranteed for a year that he might not do much. I don't know. It's interesting. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the Jameis Winston deal is, that's the best deal probably in the National Football League, to be quite honest. I mean, you get a former number one draft pick, and he's knocked, and he should be knocked for throwing 30 interceptions. But man, he threw 33 touchdown passes and over 5,000 yards as well. You're talking about getting a former number one draft pick and a Heisman Trophy winner for $1 million. I mean, that's the best deal in football. And you see what happened with the Saints. Drew Brees gets hurt. Drew Brees is over 40. And he's absolutely a great insurance policy for your season for $1 million. And that was the point I was making on Friday. It's how valuable is it to your organization and to the Steelers to keep their season afloat if their franchise quarterback isn't the guy that he was or gets hurt? I mean, there's a lot of questions around Ben. I know there's a lot of positive thoughts around his recovery and so on and so forth, but there's significantly large questions. And just how valuable is it to the organization to keep his few remaining seasons afloat? Because I think we all can agree. And the point I was trying to make with Mason Rudolph is just, no matter what side you tip on Mason Rudolph, there isn't enough information to make a conclusion either way. So that level of uncertainty is really hard to manage. So you err on the side of caution and you try to buy insurance. I mean, that's what health insurance is. I mean, we hope we're not going to get sick, but we buy insurance in the event that we do get sick or our children get sick. So that's what it is. So hopefully for the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, Bionic Big B, got that arm not to hand off.
Yeah, that's right. And you put it perfectly, and it's going to be a good segue into our headline topic for this show is insurance. It is just like insurance. A good friend of mine he's our insurance agent for State Farm Insurance, and he has a big sign.
Really, State Farm. That's awesome, Jeff. See, State Farm is a good neighbor. State Farm
Absolutely.
Is awesome.
He has a big sign in his office when you walk in that says "GoFundMe is not life insurance." And it's true, because he says when you see an obituary that it says in lieu of flowers, they have a GoFundMe page, he immediately says they didn't have life insurance. No one hopes that they have to utilize life insurance, right? But if you do, boy, are you glad that you had it.
Yes,
that's kind of like the backup quarterback situation in the National Football League. And it comes down to that. And no one in their right mind, in my opinion, is hoping that Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt. Because if that happens, then the season is in immediate jeopardy, dire straits. But ultimately, if you have that insurance policy, which I think we would all agree that it could be better. My big thing was always, can you maximize your backup quarterback position without having to really put more stress on the salary cap and spend money that could be spent elsewhere. I still think the Steelers are going to address inside linebacker somehow, some way. Is it going to be in bringing back Mark Barron? I don't know. I'm going to say no. I'm going to hedge my bet towards no. But at the same time, they need to have that money available in case they do want to do that. So for me, it's an insurance policy. And so let's segue into the next topic, which is the headline topic of this podcast, which is 2020 NFL draft has come and gone. The second round draft pick, the top pick for the Steelers, was wide receiver Chase Claypool from Notre Dame. We all know that. We're learning more about this young man every single day. And it's important to ask the question, Lance, you posed this to me via text messages. Was Chase Claypool drafted as JuJu Smith-Schuster's replacement? Eventual replacement. We'll put that word in there too, because we know that JuJu's contract expires after the 2020 season. Lance, what does your gut tell you? This isn't about analytics. It's not about looking at numbers just yet. What does your gut tell you about this situation?
My gut says yes. My gut says that he is the replacement, but they hope he isn't the replacement. And that's where the nuance is, where I think they drafted him to hedge their bet. So they would not be in a position if JuJu Smith-Schuster does not want to come back, or they can't reach a contract agreement with JuJu, that the cupboard is bare. And so it goes back to the first point. It's insurance. You hopefully don't have to use it, but if you do, it's there. And I think it's a great move, because if you don't and you have JuJu and Claypool, then you're just that much better. But if you lose JuJu and you have Claypool, you're still that much better. So I think he is the replacement if indeed JuJu Smith-Schuster does not come back. So I think they absolutely did it with that thought. And I'll even double down on that and say that's probably why they got Deontay Johnson and Claypool in the last two seasons, to make sure that cupboard is not bare. I mean, anytime you're drafting and using high assets on a position and a guy is still there, I mean, the signal, I mean, it's a shot across the bow. I mean, hopefully it doesn't hit the bow and sink the ship, but the message is there. They're trying to improve that position. And in the case that you are not gone, if you are gone, the replacements are there. So I think it's yes, with the hope that JuJu still is a Steeler.
I agree with everything you said in terms of, I was going to say the same thing about the insurance policy. That's kind of what tied these two talking points together. Let me ask you this, though, because it's the one player that comes to mind. So as you're looking at the future, you're looking after 2020, who's going to be up for a new contract? Now, the Steelers this week did announce that they picked up TJ Watt's fifth-year option. That was a surprise to absolutely no one with a brain. And so he's locked in through the 2021 season. Okay, period. So we know that Ben Roethlisberger's contract, what is it? Is it $40 million next year?
It's like 41. It's above
Yikes.
40. It's north of 40.
It's a lot. The one player that keeps sticking in my head in regards to who will decipher the future of JuJu Smith-Schuster is not Ben Roethlisberger. It's not James Conner. It is Bud Dupree. Okay? Because Bud Dupree, we know his cap hit this year is going to be 16 plus and some change $1 million as a franchise tag player. And he did sign his tender, by the way, so he's locked in. They can't rescind his tag. With that said, if they view Bud Dupree as a one-year rental player, I think, and they let him go after 2020, I think they can sign JuJu Smith-Schuster. Because if you think about that space then going, that $16 million is now gone. It's off the books. You're not moving it from 16 to, say, 7 because you signed him for a long-term deal. And I don't care what Kevin Colbert says in this regard. He's said all along that our goal has been to keep Bud Dupree and to have him be there for life. I get it. I don't believe it, period. I think that if they let him go, that they will have the space to sign JuJu Smith-Schuster, because they can sign JuJu to a 3-year deal, and that first year hit could be really low. They've done it before. They can do it again. You agree with that sentiment that it's more about Dupree than anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the other thing that they can do with Dupree to minimize that cap hit is to sign him to a long-term contract this year. Because when you look at the Steelers' salary cap, according to overthecap.com, Dupree's cap hit is 15.8. Ben Roethlisberger's at 23.75. So those are the two most expensive players. And you were talking about Ben Roethlisberger and his cap numbers. So if the Steelers were to cut Ben Roethlisberger this year, I mean, it's almost comical. His dead money charge would be $44.5 million.
Oh my God.
That is like, wow, is absolutely comical. And to that, his cap charge next year, which is his last year under his deal, is $41.25 million. So, it's going to be interesting how they prioritize things. But the one thing you also have to take into account when you're talking about cap and you're talking about how to allocate it is performance is a large part of this. So if Bud Dupree goes out next year and gets 19 sacks, he'll be back.
Yeah.
If JuJu Smith-Schuster goes out with the return of Ben Roethlisberger and Ben Roethlisberger's healthy and JuJu goes out and gets 115 catches and 1,400 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns, JuJu will be back. So you always balance it by performance. I mean, I don't want to guarantee anything, but I will guarantee if JuJu puts up numbers that I described, the effort to bring him back will be genuine and they will do everything and move every rock. And I don't know that analogy. What's the analogy? Move land and
leave no stone unturned, might be it.
Okay. Yeah, something like that. I'm terrible with cliches. They'll do what Jeff just said to keep JuJu Smith-Schuster a Steeler. Now, the other thing we always forget is it takes two to tango. If you want to do the Mamba, you got to have a partner. And so both partners have to want to be there and it has to make sense.
Well, let me ask, let's do a little role play here. Okay. You are Art Rooney II and / Kevin Colbert / Mike Tomlin. And well, actually, let's switch that. You are, let's say you're JuJu Smith-Schuster's agent. There we go.
Okay.
I will play the role of Art Rooney. So Rooney and Colbert, they approach you and say, look, we really like JuJu and we want to keep him with the Steelers for his second contract. And we would like to give him an extension prior to the 2020 season. And we want to give you X amount of dollars. It's not the highest paid wide receiver contract, but we think it is good and fair compensation to your client, JuJu Smith-Schuster, that'll keep him in Pittsburgh for the next 3 years. It'll be an extension. So it'll be after this year, it'll kick in. So he'll be here for 4 more seasons, counting the 2020 season. How do you respond if you're his agent?
Well, I tell Mr. Rooney Hartman.
Yes.
I just took a look at overthecap.com and I went to the wide receiver position and I'm looking at average salaries or total value of contracts, not average salary, but it's the average of the contract. And, I'm looking at Julio Jones. He's at 22. Amari Cooper's at 20. Michael Thomas is at 19.2. AJ Green is at 18.1. Tyreek Hill is at 18. Odell Beckham is at 18. I want to be in that area. I want to be north of 16.5, which is Mike Evans.
Oh my gosh. Maybe 2019 has skewed my view of JuJu Smith-Schuster just a little bit, and he was hurt. And so I don't want to be too tough on him in that situation. But man, do you put him up with those receivers, Lance, that you just named?
Well, as his agent,
this is Lance the hater.
Okay,
this
Lance now.
Agent.
Okay, I was going to be as his agent. Okay, I was keeping in the agent. Like it doesn't matter what I think; it matters what you think. And then I'll tell you if I agree. Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, AJ Green, Tyreek Hill, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Thielen, Jarvis. Okay.
This is now we're entering JuJu territory, in my opinion.
Okay, so you're saying JuJu is between
like
DeAndre Hopkins is 16-2. So you're saying the sweet spot is in there? I Because at 14 million, you're talking about Allen Robinson and T.Y. Hilton range. You're not going to save the average, how you structure the contract in terms of how the salary cap hit works out.
Saying no. I'm betting on my client. JuJu should want to bet on himself, because right now his stock has never been lower. But if he has a good year, like you mentioned, he can demand in a year to put me in that upper echelon of wide receivers. And so that's where, in theory, it makes sense for the Steelers to try and make a deal now. But from a financial standpoint for the client, i.e. JuJu Smith-Schuster, it's not a smart move. You want to say, I want to wait. But to bring this full circle, I think that we both is an insurance policy. If they lose JuJu after this year, they're not going to be decimated at the wide receiver. The situation where, let's say, you were stuck with a lot less in the cupboard, put it that way. You're also putting yourself out there if you get banged up again. Mm-hmm. If you all of a sudden you're hurt, you don't produce. So yes, you could elevate. If that happens, they don't want to see that happen, especially if it's an injury plague thing. They want their players to be healthy. They want their
one in the live chat that said JuJu is in the range of 11 and 2, around that range. And it's weird here when you look at the average salary, 11 million mark in terms of average. Larry Fitzgerald, Keenan Allen, and Terrell Williams. I'll give you one or two names below that. Tyler Boyd, and I'll guarantee you, if you approach JuJu with a 10.75 per average deal like Tyler Boyd and Robbie Anderson at 10 million, JuJu's going to get paid more than all those players. So I don't think I
would say 14. 14 is his range, in my opinion. 14
I
to
agree.
15. 14 to 15.
Agree. And the Steelers have to weigh keeping, Deontay Johnson, JuJu, Washington, Claypool. If that unit works well, there is a price to keeping it together. And again, you got Bionic Big B last 2 years, and the Steelers are in full go mode trying to get that 7th championship. And I think that will weigh in JuJu's favor when it comes to a contract. Bring in some new dude. I don't want to rock with these 3 young dudes, so we can go out and try to get this with a bang. I get my 7th. We can get my 7. Can you imagine the marketing 7 for 7? Ben Roethlisberger gets the 7th championship in his last year. He can't write that script better.
All right, let's change it up a little bit. 39 Ball and Cookie gives us $5 in the tip jar. We appreciate that. He said, would you say the Steelers' last 2 off seasons were secretly geared towards bolstering the special teams units? And how do you think they've done in that department? Well, I know that something that is a common thread between Lance and myself throughout the last few seasons we've done the post-game show has been it's been bad. It was bad in 2018, every kick. It's always bad with Jordan Berry punting the football, coverage units. I don't know if their drafts have been geared towards it. I think that them drafting players that have proven to be commodities on special teams is an added bonus to the player, if that makes sense. I don't think that they're drafting, Alex Highsmith in the 3rd round as an edge rusher and saying, well, if he doesn't pan out, he's going to be a good special teams guy. No, they're saying that he could have a potential to be a really good edge rusher. He could be a backup in that scenario. And he's also a very capable player on special teams. Same with Chase Claypool, who we just talked about. He's a big-bodied, fast wide receiver who can really be that missing piece of the puzzle offensively. He also likes to play special teams. He had registered a bunch of tackles at Notre Dame on special teams. I think that is like just another feather in the cap for a prospect. You agree or disagree, Lance?
Yeah, I agree. I kind of agree and disagree. I'll say this. If they draft you as a defensive player, let's say prior to the 4th round, you're a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round pick, and your contribution ends up being special teams, that wasn't their intent.
Yeah.
Their intent was for you to have a significant impact in the starting 11 or sub-package football. Special teams contribution is sort of like when you go to a restaurant, you've been eating number 5 for years. They run out of it and you have to order number 7, and number 7 is really good, and you're like, wow, I found something else that I'd like to eat at this restaurant.
Yeah.
Number 7 is what you get, special teams player, if you're a top draft pick. If you're a lower round draft pick, let's say 5th to 7th, I'll put 4th kind of as that Mendoza line. If you become a Tyler Manikavich and you're a low draft pick and you become a special teams ace and you can get contributions there, they're solid with that. But I don't think they're drafting a Tyler Manikavich with the thought that he's going to be their special teams ace. They'd like for him to contribute in the actual base or sub package defense. So it's kind of a yes and a no. But no, I don't think they go out and look for special teams unless they're taking a specialist. I mean, that's the only time I think when you can guarantee take a special teams player.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, the other talking point that we wanted to get to today is something you texted me as well. And this is a tough question, in my opinion. It is, where can the Steelers' 2020 defense improve? I think we're all going to admit that it's a pretty elite group. It's a group that has high expectations put on it heading into the new season. Lance, if you were someone that is going to pinpoint one area where this team can get better, it used to be the same adage. It used to always be turnovers. They need to create more turnovers. So they led the NFL in turnovers last year. So we really can't go that way. Where do you think this defense can improve heading into next season?
And luckily, I've done a chart for this. And let me just say this, and I'm probably going to piss off folks. And
like
I always do that anyway.
Like you've ever shied away from that.
like I'm probably going to piss off folks. That team up north, the one that no longer has the alleged GOAT, had the best defense in the National Football League last year. I think by far. That defense was elite. They were elite passing defense. They were elite at creating turnovers. They were an elite defense. They did not go far in the playoffs. They got beat in the first round, but I think that defense was elite. I think the Steelers defense is in the same conversation with that defense. I'm talking about the Patriots, that team up north. If you're unfamiliar with the show, I hate to say the Patriots, but I'm talking about that team up north who used to have Tom Brady, who's now going to be a Buck, and he's going to get bucked when he's playing for the Bucks. But anyway, I think it's NFL teams' opponents' passing yards or touchdowns per game. The Steelers ranked 14th. They gave up about 1.5 touchdown passes per game. Now, if you look at that compared to some other defenses that I think were really good. So I think New England was really good on defense. Like I said, the best defense. Buffalo. So New England ranked 1 in that category. Buffalo was 2. Baltimore 3. Chicago 4. Green Bay 5. Seattle 6. Denver 7. Carolina 8. Dallas 9. The Chargers 10. Kansas City 11. Jacksonville, Minnesota. Then you had the Steelers. The Steelers were middle of the road in terms of giving up touchdown passes per game. And I found that stat really surprising because I think the strength of this defense is their secondary. Now, 1.4 isn't a ton, but when you're talking about a defense that is as good as it is, and you're looking for small areas of improvement, I think that's a small area of improvement. Now, if you compare that number to the worst defense in football, Miami gave up 2.5 touchdown passes per game. So it's not like teams are giving up 4 or 5 on average, but I still think that's a room for improvement for this defense is the number of touchdown passes, or the average number of the touchdown passes that they give up per game.
You have their team stats, defense stats in front of you right now?
I have a couple of them, probably not all of them. Give me one that you want me to.
The one area that I was looking at was rushing yards per game and yards per carry surrendered on average. I guess when I think back to those early 2000 defenses, and that's as close to dominant as I've seen a Steelers defense in my lifetime. I was not alive for the 70s Steelers, the steel curtain that just completely dominated. But for some reason, I feel like if they could do a better job suffocating the run, and especially in a division with, we've talked about it before, maybe some of the best ball carriers in the NFL with Lamar Jackson, Ingram. Obviously, they got J.K. Dobbins. You also have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, up in Cleveland, Mixon in Cincinnati. It's a situation where I'm not sure if the numbers really match up with my perception, and that could definitely be the case. But when I think back to those elite 2000s defenses, they were a team that never gave up 100 yards rushing. If you're going to beat us, it's going to be on our terms. We're going to dictate what you do. And that's when I think about elite defenses, that's what I think of. And I'm not sure that, at least in 2019, that they had that type of defense. Do you have those numbers, Lance, by chance?
So the opponent's rushing yards per game against the Steelers defense, the Steelers were 14th. They gave up 109.6 per game. And in their last 3 games, they gave up 146 per game. And to your point, I think you saw how Baltimore ran the ball against them in the last game of the season. And Baltimore pretty much had their way on the ground against the Steelers defense.
Yeah. And when I think about this defense and where's their strength, you just said it. Secondary is one, absolutely. Pass rush is the other. If they can, a team like Baltimore, which let's be honest, they're now the litmus test in the AFC North. They won it the last 2 years. They were the number 1 seed heading into the playoffs. I mean, that's natural. That's not anything that's not a cut on the Steelers. That's just fact. If you can force 3rd and longs on that team, you got them where you want them. You know what I mean? And so being able to stifle the run on early downs and not give, whether it's Baker Mayfield, whether it's Joe Burrow, whether it's Lamar Jackson, not giving them 3rd and manageables is huge. I mean, it's enormous. And that's when the defense can pin their ears back, Cam Hayward, Stephon Tua, TJ Watt, Bud Dupree, and they can wreak havoc in the backfield. That's where I feel, if I'm answering the question that you pose, how can the Steelers defense get better? Stymie the run more. Stop the run. Make teams beat you on your terms, not the other way around.
Here's an interesting point, and maybe we should punt this topic more so the Oracle and the Stat Geek next week, hint, hint, punt, can delve into this a little deeper. Here's an interesting thing. Although they were 14th in the yards per game stat, they were 3rd in yards per rush attempt at 3.8. And I think that speaks to how good they were as a secondary and how good they were in terms of pass rush, because you might want to pick your poison with that defense by running the ball a lot as opposed to, trying to air it out and put your offense at risk of getting the ball intercepted and or your quarterback gets sacked. So the rushing yards might be a little bit artificial just because the rushing attempts are really high. And I can give you the rushing attempts per game against the defense. And teams ran it 28.9 times against the Steelers, or turning the ball over. So teams ran it a lot against the Steelers. So it'd be interesting to see if the Oracle wants to dive into that as we punt the football or Stat Geek to the Oracle.
Well, this is all a part of football being the ultimate team game. Robert said it, and I was going to add this to it, but I'll put his message on the screen here. He said, our defense can get better by our offense keeping the ball longer. Not just keeping the ball longer, Robert, but scoring touchdowns. You go against a team like Baltimore, who just loves to run the ball so much in a variety of ways, including with their quarterback. If you are up by 14 points, you no longer have the option of just running the ball at will. You're going to have to put the ball in the air to get back. That's what they missed in 2019. Those 2000 defenses, maybe even 2008.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a fantastic run of defense from about 2008 to probably around 2012. I mean, they played some great football. So 8 takes you to the championship. 10 takes you to the loss against the Packers in the Super Bowl, and 12 takes you a couple years past that. So you still had a blend of Tomlin guys and Cowher guys on that defense. They played some really good defense, but like I've said it before on the show, I think this defense is, this secondary is definitely the best secondary they've had since 2008. I think it's actually the best secondary they've had under Tomlin. And because of that, and because of the sack numbers that they get every year, 3 straight years of 50 plus sacks. yes, this defense is probably one of the best that they've had since '08. And I think it's an elite defense. And I just think there's a couple of small things that they can improve. But to your point, Jeff, points are more important than time in
Yeah.
football in terms of protecting your defense. You get up 14-0, and I don't care if it takes you one play. You have 2 one-play drives and they're both bombs and you get up 14. Well, you get up 14 against the Ravens. Just look at that playoff game against the Tennessee Titans. You get up on the Ravens in the first quarter, and now you got to put pressure on Lamar Jackson, have to sling it 45 times. All of a sudden, the team's one-dimensional. So, and I think that's always been a tug and pull between the importance of time and possession and points. Give me points. Give your defense a lead to sit on, and your defense will flourish. Imagine this defense playing with leads consistently. You're talking 60 sacks.
Well, imagine the 2019 defense with the 2018 red zone offense. And I know that's tough to say based on the fact that, in 2018, you had different personnel on the field and stuff like that. Obviously, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown. But if you were to have that red zone offense, gosh, you just cannot stress the importance of a touchdown versus a field goal. I mean, 14-0 to 6-0 is massive. It's a 1-score game to a 2-score game. Just think about San Francisco last year. Week 3, Pittsburgh goes to San Francisco. They get 5 turnovers, and they cannot convert touchdowns. It's just field goal fest. And yes, we've all seen the Steelers win with 6 Chris Boswell field goals, but that should not be the norm, and that should not be the expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm laughing at what's the B word 5 too. Keep that Ravens.
Dude, you came to a Steelers podcast. What are you thinking?
That's great. I hope he's getting people fired up. That's great in there. Yeah, I mean, in that scenario with the 2018 red zone offense and that defense last year, that's a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
I mean, flat out, like with Ben Roethlisberger on that team last year, that team is going to compete for the division title. I mean, we saw how close the game was, in Pittsburgh before JuJu Smith-Schuster got the ball punched out. And that's the bad thing with turnovers and the perception of turnovers. JuJu's fumbled what? And I think we've talked about it twice in his career. He fumbled against the Saints, and he fumbled against the Ravens. And the perception of JuJu as a football player, I don't think it's completely flipped, but let's just say the quarter or the coin, it's on its side.
Yeah.
And depending how JuJu plays really early in the season, it could flip either way, heads or tails, because Steeler Nation is a fickle set of fans.
Yes. Now, Dave Schofield, I'll give him credit. He wrote an article, it was maybe a couple months ago, well before the draft was really on the horizon. And it was all about how JuJu Smith-Schuster has this label of a chronic fumbler. He's not. He just has fumbled in 2 really bad spots,
Really?
And quality and quantity do weigh in this topic, because you fumble in bad spots, it turns the tide in the game. We've seen that both in New Orleans, and we saw it obviously at Heinz Field against Baltimore in week 5 last year. But, I think that JuJu Smith-Schuster is a player that is beloved by the fan base. But like you said, they're a fickle mistress. They don't care. It's what have you done for me lately? So yeah, you got your bike stolen. Yes, you're funny. Yes, you're very active on social media. And yes, you do really good work in the community, but it doesn't mean squat if you don't produce, period.
Hey, man, Steeler Nation, football fans in general, we like assholes that score touchdowns. I just want to keep
we
it
did
100.
cheer for Antonio Brown for all those years. So yes, you are right.
Come on, man. Let's just keep it 100. It just is what it is.
Let's end the show on this topic, because what's the B word 52, who's another YouTuber, he said, and he's all good. He's fine. He's a good guy. Seems like he just sparks my mind. Did you happen to see Antonio Brown released the photo of himself in a Ravens uniform? There's talk because he's trained with his cousin Marquise and Lamar Jackson down in Florida. What would your reaction be if Mr. Antonio Brown went to Baltimore?
I'd love it, because it'd be a fantastic opportunity for the Steelers to really knock him out numerous times per year. It'd be awesome.
I thought you were gonna sell out. I thought you were gonna sell out and say, "Man, that would be a great podcast. We get great numbers." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he is completely sold out."
Yeah,
hey, go ahead.
I would just love to see him get. I'm not a proponent of violence all the time, but sometimes, and him getting knocked out. Look, I come from an era in the 70s where, if the Steelers didn't win, they could win the fight. And so, I have a dad that would say, sometimes you got to take a 15-yard penalty. Sometimes you got to take one to make a statement. And I hope he would run a shallow cross. I would love that. He run a shallow cross and run into that linebacker on the opposite side, and he get torn up. I think the Steelers would absolutely try to tear AB up, Mr. 3rd and 5th, Mr. Gummy Richards. I think Tomlin would have them on fire trying to tear him up on that Sunday, and it would be great to see.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those situations where people need to remember, number one, first and foremost, is that wherever he goes, whoever he signs with, if he ever signs with someone, you cannot expect him to be on a roster anytime soon. He will most likely go on to the commissioner's exempt list until his off-field litigation is resolved. And it's not resolved. It's not even close to resolved. So if Baltimore wants to sign this guy and bring that distraction to their headquarters, then by all means, go. Have fun.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. He's old. He hasn't played football for a ton of time. Gummy Richards not coming back. But yes, like Jesse Robinson said, statement hits. I love that. The hashtag statement hits. Okay. You want to catch it over the middle? Yes, sir. I'll take that fine.
Do you think JuJu Smith-Schuster regrets the hit on Vontaze Burfict?
Absolutely not.
Hell no, he doesn't.
No, they love JuJu. They love JuJu when JuJu came in the locker room. Look, they was like, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
They were yelling karma. Did. They were yelling karma, physically yelling karma.
They were?
Yeah. Antonio Brown was.
Oh, love it. Oh, love it. That's how you endear yourself to your teammates. I think the thing we forget at times is football, it's a hell of a physical game. These is grown men out here that try to make physical statements on every single play.
Yeah.
And trust me, Tomlin will have them try. He won't Greg Robinson him. If you guys don't remember Greg Robinson when he was defensive coordinator of the Saints, Bounty Gate. Tomlin won't Greg Robinson him. He'll probably do everything about as close to that if that opportunity is there.
You tell your guys simple. Hey, you get a shot, take it. You get a shot, take it. I just think that a guy like Antonio Brown, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I don't think he has changed. I know I'm really stepping out. I'm really stepping out here. I don't think he's changed. We saw what it was like when Roethlisberger went out and he had to play with another quarterback. Now, granted, when he went to New England for a short stint there, he's playing with Tom Brady. Okay. So that's
one TD pass.
Yes. But when he had to play with guys like Landry Jones, what was his demeanor like? So let's be honest. Lamar Jackson is not considered to be the most accurate thrower of the football. Do you think that's fair, Lance, in that statement?
I would say it's fair that is something he is improving on.
He's improving on, and I'm not going to disagree with you, but he's not considered the most accurate thrower of the ball. And what do you think Antonio Brown's reaction would be if he's deep down the field and Lamar tucks it and runs? He's going to get fed up.
Yeah, I tell the water cooler to duck and hide. The water cooler is going to get it.
Yeah. So I just think that there's a lot of Steelers fans that saw that image and they're like, oh my gosh, please don't. There's so many layers to this. Just calm down.
I'm laughing at what's the B word. Say MVP before you say Lamar, buddy. Hey, that is true. Those are hashtag facts.
And what did that MVP get them? One more game than the Steelers last year.
Loss. Facts.
One more
Both
game.
Are facts. Also, facts is I can say never a guy who's never won a playoff game.
That's
MVP, true. Lamar Jackson.
Facts. Hashtag facts.
Facts. But yeah, Tomlin would give them the head nod. I mean, you were a coach, Jeff, a head coach. When you give the guy you give him the head nod, like, I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to.
There were players on my team that I literally would be able to go up to him and say, hey, see that guy out there that's killing us? Let's take care of it. And you'd know they'd get a penalty. I knew it was coming, and they come off the field like, hey, good job. They'll pound it. It's horrible. And I hate saying that I was like that, but at the same time,
throw some water on him.
You
got to throw some water on that. Got to put that fire out. Okay, coach.
I had guys who would say, Coach, I got you. I got you, Coach. Let me go in. All right, go in, do the job. He was normally a backup guy anyways. He'd take a run. He'd get the hit. He'd get tossed or put in the box. All right, we'll take it. We'll play man down. That's fine.
Put that fire out. Yeah, I mean, that's what football is. I mean, and so if that ever came up, Antonio gonna see it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. It's been a good show. Stuck to topics today. It's kind of crazy. It's not like us, not on Sunday at least, but hey, here we go. Reminder to everyone that BehindTheSteelCurtain.com is with this podcast platform is a branch off of that. So check out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. To give you a rundown what's coming up this week. Tomorrow, Monday, will be Brian Anthony Davis and Tony Defio for the Steelers Q&A. Tuesday is Dave Schofield and Big Bro Rich for the Steelers Stat Geek. Wednesday, Lance and I will be back for the Standard is a Standard. Thursday, the Steeler Preview. Lance will be on. Yeah, I said it on Friday. And Saturday will be Tony Defio. Just a reminder, if you're listening on audio platform, I'm looking at mid-May, not March. Gosh, this quarantine's killing me. Mid-May to maybe release some podcast only content early in the morning, having these run more towards the afternoon. I will keep you up to date with that, but keep your eye out. Some fresh faces, some new names, but it won't be on our YouTube channel, just on audio platforms. So Lance, unless you have anything to say, let's send us out.
Yeah, before I get out of here, make sure you guys check out the interview. What's the gentleman's name we did the interview with Chase Claypool?
Michael Beck. He's going to be one of the guys that's going to be giving us some audio as in maybe once or twice a week coming up. So he'll be joining the podcast platform.
It's good. It's a good interview. Make sure you guys check out
short and sweet.
That. Short and sweet. But with that, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Make sure you guys enjoy your Sunday. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
Amen. Everyone stay safe out there. We'll see you next Sunday for another episode of the Homer and the Hater Show.